Hey guys, I'm Uncle Joel with Pin and Reel, where we talk about comic books, video games, TV shows, movies, books, and more. We'll do reviews, speculation, ideas I have as a writer for what I would do if I was writing the movies or comics, and so on. Please leave a comment to let us know what you think. Really appreciate the feedback. If you like what you see, hit like and be sure to subscribe. And with that being said, on to the video. So today I want to talk about Flash, Fastest Man Alive, one of DC's digital-first comics. Now this comic takes a slightly different approach from some of the other digital-first offerings, in that those ones, the first 6 issues were done by someone well-known, and then moved on to somebody lesser known, whereas this one has the first 5 issues are done by Gail Simone, and then issue 6 is a standalone issue by Greg Pak, and only after that does it move on to the lesser-known creators. So for this video I decided to just stick with the Gail Simone stuff. I'll address the Greg Pak issue later, and then maybe move on to some of the other issues a bit later on down the road. So for Gail Simone's 5-issue run, it's a little bit odd in how it's structured. The first issue is very much a standalone, and it serves to introduce Barry, Iris, and just kind of the basic Flash setup. Not that we necessarily needed that, but it acts as an okay introduction to people who are not necessarily familiar with the characters. I did find it a little bit odd that issue 1 is entirely standalone, whereas issues 2 through 5 are really focused on telling one cohesive story. That being said, I do think that Gail Simone has a pretty strong grasp on these characters, and I do like her storytelling here. I generally enjoy Gail Simone books, so that's not too much of a surprise. And this story arc serves as a new introduction to the Reverse Flash. Overall, I would say the story is just okay. It's not like especially memorable as a Flash story, and it's not the strongest introduction to the Reverse Flash, but it does do some interesting things that are quite interesting to me. For instance, we get a look at the 25th century where they've done some interesting things here. For example, and here's a very slight spoiler, in the 25th century, the Reverse Flash releases small portions of the Speed Force to segments of the population in controlled bursts for like 10 minutes at a time. So that way they get a taste of the speed and get a taste of what it feels like to be the Flash, but only for 10 minutes. And that's such a great concept that I think you could do a lot with. Giving people a taste of superpowers for a very short amount of time, to the point that they're going to be craving more. And if you control the supply of that power, then you're going to have people addicted to it and people who are subservient to you just for another taste of that power. You know, imagine getting a small dose of, say, being able to fly for like 10 minutes at a time. Now, it would be terrifying if you did not do it responsibly. If you made sure you came back close to the ground with it when you had 10, 15 seconds left, and it was no longer dangerous, then that would be phenomenal. And if you got a taste of that every once in a while, you're going to constantly be coming back for more because it's such an amazing experience. And so introducing the Reverse Flash in this setting really shows the way that he manipulates things and controls things in a very unique manner. I think there's a lot that could be done with this kind of characterization, this kind of world setup. Now, as was the case with the Swamp Thing story arc, we know that this is only a limited run, and so these ideas aren't going to be fully fleshed out. We're not going to explore them the way that I would like, but it's very interesting to see these ideas thrown out there, and I would be curious to see other people pick up these threads and run with them later on. No pun intended. I mean, personally, I already have ideas for how you could build an entire story just around that concept alone. So I really appreciate that Gail Simone did this, as well as introducing other ideas surrounding time travel and the Speed Force and just the introduction of the Reverse Flash. There's a lot that she did within the story that has the potential to really pay off in dividends later. Unfortunately, this is a standalone story arc. So yeah, I'm hopeful that some other writers can pick up on some of the plot threads that Gail Simone seeded here and play with them later on in this series. I don't really know that there is necessarily going to be a continuity for this series, or if it's just going to be a series of standalone stories and standalone story arcs. But my hope is that at the least one writer can pick up some of the threads that the previous writer set up and continue on with those ideas. Now, unfortunately, I feel like the story didn't have the strongest ending, but it wasn't too bad. There was a lot of setup, and the payoff wasn't the greatest. That being said, with how things were progressing, it does make sense how it ended. It felt like it was building to something really interesting, and then it was a very simple conclusion. But overall, I really did enjoy Gail Simone's run, and I would be interested to see her work with the Flash more in the future. Of the 3 Digital First series I have covered thus far, I would say this is probably the most enjoyable one. I do think Robert Venditti's run on Superman was a bit more solid, but Gail Simone's Flash was a bit more fun. So in that regard, I would put them about even with one another. Both have strengths and weaknesses that kind of balance them out with one another. So yeah, I enjoyed it, and I would say it's worth a read. Coming up next, I think I'm going to take a break from the Digital First comics so that I can get caught up on Scott Snyder's Justice League run, specifically so that I can read Dark Knight's Death Metal. So yeah, come back soon and I'll probably have at least a video or 2 for Scott Snyder's Justice League, and if nothing else, I'm going to tackle Death Metal. Until then, this is Uncle Joel saying, stay tangible.